To begin with, life is gradually returning to normalcy in Obuasi following last week's military clash with some illegal miners in Ghana's oldest gold mining town. Schools and other essential services suspended in the impasse are resuming. However, some private and public schools are recording reduced attendance as some parents fear reprisals despite heavy security deployment in the town. Emmanuel Bright-Kweku has more.
Students of the Complex Model School in Obuasi are back to the classroom and happily engaged in the day's activities. In the last 2 days, schools, including universities and the gold mining town, closed temporarily, culminating from the violent clash between soldiers and some illegal miners in the community. Like many other schools in the town, the Obuasi cluster of schools, housing 4 schools, recorded low attendance on the first day after the short break. The situation has compelled teachers to merge classes for teaching and learning.
My daughter
doesn't attend AGA school, but I am scared to let her go to school, even though schools have resumed. I will let her go on Monday instead. I am waiting for everything to be calmer before I let her go.
Monday,
Life is back to the KNUST campus in Obuasi as students actively return to lectures to make up for the lost time. But there are fears of reprisal even as they go about their academic activities.
Though we are safe and we go to class, nothing is happening around us. But there is this fear that is in us that there's a probability that something might happen to us or something. So I just wish everything ends so that at least that psychological effect that is having on us would be gone.
While students in the Obuasi municipality return to class, their colleagues in the Obuasi East district are yet to resume from their 3-day hiatus.
This is the Tutuka Methodist Primary School located specifically in the Obuasi East district. And as you can see, the classrooms remain under lock and key. There's no students around and even teachers. We understand that hopefully tomorrow they should resume school. Authorities here have indicated that they are hoping the tensions will be calmer and peace will be restored in this particular district.
George Kumsen is the education director in Obuasi Municipal.
So with this incident and the 2 days lost, we are going to make sure that our morning reading sessions, we are going to use those periods to make up for the lost contact hours. The learners and then the teachers and the officer, we are not the target. But as it happens, when there is chaos like that, anyone at all can be affected. With the security in place, there are patrols here and there, and I believe the other sides are also being talked to.
Management of the AGA schools have also announced reopening on Monday. Many other residents in Obuasi are eagerly awaiting the total restoration of calmness to go about their daily routine.
We think everything is calmer now, but it isn't. The authorities should act swiftly to restore peace.
So life is gradually returning to Obuasi, but there is a bit of security concern amongst the residents here. They want in the coming days that security could be continued to ensure that they are more safer in this gold mining town. From here in Obuasi Tutuka, for Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Bright-Kweku.
Meanwhile, Asantehene Otumfuo has condemned the actions of the illegal miners who invaded the mining site leading to the clash.
I'm also aware of the threats to your employees also. I've been briefed about that, and therefore and also the steps that you've taken to make sure that your workers and employees are also protected.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we don't have a minister for lands now. He's gone through vetting because that's also another step where we will discuss broadly with the government in terms of policy in relation to illegal mining. The Galamsey issue also is another one. So I know that that will come up after the minister is in place, and then we have a very candid and thorough meeting with the president and the minister to see the way forward in relation to dealing with that. I recall in 2016 where this issue came up at that time. And I'm also saying that we should see the portion of about 60 acres or whatever to the illegal miners at that time and all that. In fact, there were vibes that even though Anglo Gold Owners is part, the portion didn't go to the people that were supposed to go to. And even though that was done, Anglo Gold honored their part, and we ceded the 60%, 60 whatever acres to whatever. So this all has been lingering, and people arguing that it didn't come to us, so we didn't have anywhere to go. And that is also not acceptable for people to take the law into their own hands to go and disturb legitimate business, which Anglo Gold and Obuasi are intertwined. The community relies on the mining company. The mining company also is there because it's for the community, and that it is not acceptable. People cannot just say that because we want to eat, we have to go to the mine. No, that cannot be done. We are not living in a banana republic. The law must be obeyed. Because if I'm living in my house here, this lease has been given to me. Someone just cannot walk in to say, I also want somewhere to live, and therefore I'm coming to live in your house.
Now, my colleague Emmanuel Bright-Kweku has been following the story from the very beginning since it broke and joins us for updates. Emmanuel, help me paint the picture of the incident since you started following. Your report said you said that although life is returning to normalcy, residents are skeptical about the children going to school. Paint the picture for us. We are trying to reconnect with my colleague Emmanuel Bright-Kweku, who's actually been following the story from the beginning, and he has some updates for us. We want to understand from his perspective. Well, Emmanuel, I understand you're with us now. Help us paint the picture. You say that although things are returning to normalcy, residents are skeptical, especially returning their children to school. How bad does that look from your perspective? Well, apologies for that. We are having some technical challenges with Emmanuel Bright-Kweku, but we will re-establish connection and he'll help us put in perspective how bad the situation is or otherwise. Meanwhile, a former Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Inusah Fuseini, has condemned the recent attacks in Obuasi as he welcomes investigations into the matter. Let's take a listen.
And I'll try to talk and speak dispassionately about Galamsey. We need to understand that illegal mining cannot be allowed to go on in this country. If we allow it, we are being irresponsible as a people, because it represents an existential threat to this country. Go to the mining communities. See the number of children who are brought forth deformed, the number of pregnant women who are losing their pregnancies. And then you will understand what we are talking about. Now go and look at the degradation of the environment. Look at the pollution of the water bodies. Understand and study the insecurity at those areas. And you will ask yourself, how can we allow this to go on? In 1989, and I visited Obuasi as a Minister for Lands and Natural Resources.
You have told us here how your very life was in danger for seeking to enforce the laws.
Yeah, so I had to hang a camera in my office. But I deactivated it when I was leaving. It became an issue when Akufo-Addo won.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because people actually told me that my life was in danger. And I wanted to know anybody coming to my office must be recorded. Because you will know when you come into the office, you close the door. So you don't know who is coming in to harm you. So if they succeed in harming me, in killing me, at least the camera will reveal who did it. But politics entered. And then we must take politics out of this. Look, you sit in the crowd, you think you are far insulated. You are insulated against the ravages of Galamsey.
No. It's right here.
It's right here.
It's
the oranges that you drink.
When we cross the borders, we have had experts tell us about that.
The oranges that you drink, if they come from Galamsey sides, you know that the hard metals that are in it.
Now, the National Media Commission is cautioning the media against inciting comments to stoke violence. The call comes in the wake of widespread criticism against some journalists who supposedly called for a mob action against Anglo-Gold Ashanti. Speaking on Newspow, Executive Secretary of the National Media Commission, George Sapong, says media practitioners should be mindful of the legal liabilities that come with making such pronouncements.
So, Samson, the point I was seeking to make is that we need to see what this presenter is doing within its context. He is only a puppet player. Those who are holding the strings controlling him also need to be brought to order. As far as the National Media Commission is concerned, this was the idea LIT for the content standards in electronic communication. And we strongly believe that all of us need to represent. I heard you raise the question of jurisdiction, and I knew that you were seeking to educate the public. Let all those who sit outside and send in wrongful content understand that you do not avoid liability by standing at Aflao and throwing bomb into Togo and claiming that there are no jurisdictional matters in there. It is the same thing that applies to media content. Where you sit to do the act may not matter. The society that you impact may well be where you be held liable.
Yeah, but the thing is that they take safety in the fact that they are not in your country. You can't get them. That's what I mean. For those who are operating virtually.
And you are right. But I think we need to deal with three things and help them to understand that they will not avoid liability for long. The enforcement challenges are completely different from the questions of liability, and they need to learn them.
Well, my colleague Emmanuel Bright-Kweku joins us via phone now, and he's going to help us put in perspective the situation in Obuasi. Emmanuel, thanks for joining us. Now, in your report, you mentioned that although things are returning to normalcy, residents are still skeptical about sending their children back to school. How bad is the situation from your perspective?
What I have gathered so far, it is that, well, we have the security deployment in town. And so you go about, let's say, on the street, you would find some of the security personnel, that's the police and military, on the streets of Obuasi. But with regard to when maybe the illegal miners can attack, and the residents cannot really point out. And so sometimes they are scared of going about their duties, their normal daily routines in Obuasi. But as we speak now, it is a bit calmer compared to the previous days. And so when I interacted with them, as some of them rightly mentioned, is that although they are walking through the streets, going about their daily duties, the safety bit is a concern, their security is a bit of concern. And so they are hoping that in the coming days, when they do not suspect that any reprisal can happen, they would actually go, let's say, go send their wards, especially back to school, because the woman I spoke with, she rightly mentioned that she's a bit skeptical about sending her ward to school, because normally her ward is the only one who goes to school and comes back alone. And so she does not know when even the illegal miners could maybe attack. And so sending the ward back to school might be a challenge. But she says that maybe from some few days, that's Monday, that's some few days to Monday, hopefully she would send her ward to school. And then we also expect that Anglo-Gold Ashanti schools in Obuasi, they are expected to resume on Monday, January 27, 2025. But with a bit of security concern for now, it's a bit calmer as compared to the previous days when the issues started.
Right, Emmanuel, right before you go, is this skepticism as a result of the reduced security personnel presence in the town?
Not per se, but as in when and where they would attack, because you know the security personnel, they are patrolling to and fro from the town. And so they really do not know when and where they would be attacking, or let's say a reprisal could be happening And so walking through the streets, it might be a bit of a challenge for them. And then specifically, we gather that usually the attack is made on the, let's say, workers of Anglo-Gold Ashanti or Obuasi mine, or even some of the properties owned by the mine. And so sometimes even walking around the vicinities of the Anglo-Gold Ashanti or Obuasi mine, there's a bit of concern over there. So the patrols are mostly in these particular areas. That's the residential area and even the mine.
Do we have any updates yet on the status of the investigations?
For the investigations, from what I have gathered so far, in my interactions with the medical superintendent, there was supposed to be an autopsy that should be done on the 9 people that died. So 7 have been buried, and so the autopsy have been completed for the 7, and then the 2, and we understood that in the evening of the burial service, the 2 were also concluded. And so a comprehensive report is expected to be submitted from the medical end to be given to the police, who also compile a comprehensive report on everything that has happened with regards to this particular clash in Obuasi. And so in the coming days, this is expected to be submitted to the Ashanti Regional Minister Designate, which will be forwarded to the President, Sweetie.
Emmanuel Bright-Kweku there, bringing us up to date on what's happening in Obuasi. Thank you, Emmanuel. Now, in a related matter, 2 persons have died and 1 in a critical condition in a renewed illegal mining siege on the Tano-Anwia Forest Reserve in Awin municipality of the Western region. Joy News can confirm the 2 groups who have laid siege in the forest on Wednesday engaged in a fight, leading to the death of 2 and 1 in critical condition with severe gunshot wounds. The armed groups, led by known political acts, have taken over the biodiversity area and mining illegally. Let's take a listen at Erastus Asaridonko's report.
The Tano-Anwia Forest Reserve was invaded early last year by known political actors in the Awin municipality, spearheaded by armed thugs. Clean Jobs, the company with a legal concession in the area, has been teaming up with the Forestry Commission to ward off the illegal miners, preventing full-scale destruction of the reserve. But after a momentary respite following a change in power, 2 armed groups have taken over, laying siege and engaging in the illegal mining of the biodiversity area. Sources on the ground accuse the MP for the area of sponsoring the fresh siege on the forest with close to 17 excavators. But Oscar Oforilabi has denied involvement, but confirms those mining are party boys. Members of a rapid response team dispatched to stop the illegality were later accosted outside the forest area by the illegal miners on motorbikes, taken to an unknown location and assaulted. Joy News checks revealed they seized the weapons of some of the forest guards. On Wednesday, the 2 armed groups who have laid siege in the Tano-Anwia Forest Reserve engaged in a fight, leading to the death of 2 and 1 in a critical condition with severe gunshot wounds. Sources at the Forestry Commission say forest guards are unable to discharge their duties anymore because of the latest invasion. Forest reserves affected in the latest wave of invasion include Tano-Anwia, Tano-Nimre, and the Yoyo Forest Reserves. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaridonko, Awin Municipality, Western Region.
Moving on, the Upper West region has recorded 19 suspected cases of cerebrospinal meningitis, 9 confirmed cases and 6 deaths. Deputy Upper West Regional Director of Health Services in charge of public health, Dr. Collins Boateng Dankwa, who disclosed that the 19 cases are from 6 municipalities and districts in the region, with the 6 deaths equally shared by Naudoli-Kalio and district, the Naudoli-Kalio district and Nando municipality. Now, he assured the public that despite the high case of fatality, they are in control of the situation, adding that they have enough logistics and vaccines to handle the situation. Speaking an exclusive interview with Joy News Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam, he urged persons who are experiencing symptoms of the disease to report to the nearest health facility or hospital.
Cerebrospinal meningitis, CSM, or simple called meningitis, is a severe infection that inflames that manages the protective membrane surrounding the brain and spinal cord. It occurs in various parts of the country, but more prevalent in the northern Gulf of the country, where they experience a long dry spell between October and March. The Upper West region lies on the CSM belt. On a yearly basis, several suspected, confirmed, and cases of mortality of the disease has always been recorded. This year is no exception, as the disease already has recorded 19 suspected cases and 6 deaths. Dr. Colin Dankwa is the Deputy Upper Regional Director of Health Services in charge of public health.
We've recorded it in 6 districts, as I have said. We have 1 case being recorded at DBI. It's a suspect being suspected at DBI. Jirapa 2 cases, Lambusie 2, Nadoli Kali 7, Mandom Municipal 5, and then Wild West 3. So these are what we have gotten now. But based on those that we have confirmed using the PCR, Nadoli Kali has been confirmed with 4, and then Mandom Municipal 3, and then Wild West 1. These have been confirmed with the PCR. And then out of this, we have 6 deaths, 3 occurring at Nandom, and then 3 occurring at Nadoli. But with Nadoli, the later part of 2024, we recorded 1 death, which was around 30th December. So that makes it 4. But for this month, January.
Dr. Colin Dankwa spoke of the age range of the suspected cases of the disease.
If you look at the age range of the deaths, or the age range of people who have died, is between 20 to 25 years. So, and you know, these ages are when the issue is that when they get the headache or the neck pain, they think it's normal. Let's go and buy paracetamol and take. They will not resort to the hospital. For instance, when a child gets fever, the mother will quickly send him or her to the hospital. But with this age bracket, they normally think, oh, it's because of stress I'm getting headache, let me take para. So I want to tell them that this is not about normal headache, I'm going to take paracetamol. We plead with them. Once you get the headache and neck stiffness and you are in Upper West region, kindly visit any nearby hospital.
He also spoke of the 2 strains of the disease that health workers are battling with.
So all the deaths that we have recorded now, or the cases we have recorded now, is only 1 case that the patient recorded the 2, both Neisseria meningitis and Streptococcus pneumoniae, but all the other 5 cases were Streptococcus pneumoniae. And what I want the public to know is that with the Streptococcus pneumoniae, there is no vaccine for it.
He averred that some of the deaths would have been averted if the victims had sought early treatment at a health facility or in a hospital.
The region has prepared adequately. We have the logistics, we have the drugs, everything is available. So we don't see how or why people should sit when they have any of the symptoms I have mentioned: headache, neck stiffness, and then high-grade fever. Please just report to any nearby facility. Now, the more we suspect and then we take the sample early, that is when we are able to bring the disease down.
Reporting for J News, Rafik Salam. Wah.
In other stories, a joint study by the University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria, and the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi has unveiled alarming findings regarding the presence of cancer-causing substances in meat singed with different fuel sources. The study, published in a journal, Environmental Health Insights, has found that meat singed with tires in Ghana contain high levels of harmful chemicals called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Now, these chemicals can increase the risk of cancer. From our Health and Science and Agricultural Desk, Emmanuel Bright-Kweku reports.
The study, led by Prosper Menu Abdullahi from the University of Port Harcourt, tested meat singed with tires, firewood, and LPG gas in Ghana's 5 largest cities: Kumasi, Accra, Koforidua, Tamale, and Ho. The researchers collected 180 samples of cattle and goat meat singed using the different fuel types. They found that meat singed with tires had the highest levels of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, especially a dangerous carbon called benzopyrene.
there were some traces of this pH, which is carcinogen, very serious carcinogen. We found out that there were traces of pH even before they were singed. However, after singing, in fact, the contamination went very high. It was so much. And among these three fuel types, the ties that are used most often these are abattoirs, which is the Kumasi Abattoir, Accra, Koforidua, Tamale, and Ho, were high. The meats which were singed with ties were very high. And these meats were much purchased because of whatever reason I mentioned earlier on. Also, surprisingly, we found out that the concentrations were higher in samples that were bought from the Kumasi Abattoir.
Children and older adults are more at risk from these chemicals. The study recommends using safer methods like LPG gas for singeing meat and calls for stricter rules to prevent the use of tires.
What we are encouraging is that the stakeholders should have something to do at the abattoir so that all of them would come use the LPG. In fact, there's a process that is started using the waste at the abattoir to generate gas for them. At a point in time, they stopped it. So if that can be pushed, and yes, we find some traces using LPG, but that one looks far better than using the firewood and the tar.
For Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Bratkweku.
Now, President John Dramani Mahama is expected to leave Ghana today for Kenya for a high-level retreat on African Union institutional reforms scheduled to take place on the 26th to 27th of January 2025 in Nairobi. President Mahama is attending the event at the invitation of Kenya's President William Ruto, who in February 2024 was designated the African Union champion for institutional reform. He took over from President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, and Presidential Affairs correspondent Maxwell Agbagba is in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, for us and joins us live. Maxwell, before you even give us details about what the president expected to happen, how is Kenya? Maxwell, if you can hear me, please unmute.
Yeah, so it's good to hear. Kenya is calm, all is well here. In the capital, quite different from what we were seeing previously from the international media on the protests that were happening here in Nairobi. There are no protests today here in the capital. All is calm. I'm loving the temperature, especially.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good here.
Great. Okay. So tell us about the details for tomorrow's meeting.
Okay, so the AU meeting on institutional reforms is going to bring quite a number of head of states together here in Nairobi. We know that a conversation about institutional reforms for the African Union started sometime in 2016. Since then, the African Union has been working very hard to make changes to some of its structures. Now, we know that there are 5 key areas that is really the focus for these institutional reforms. One of them is for the African Union, or members of the African Union, to strengthen their relationship with their citizens in the diaspora. Of course, that is important because you know about the remittances from the diaspora and how this remittances go a long way to help a lot of African countries. One of the core areas, one of the major focal points also is about sustainable financing, how the African Union can implement sustainable measures to fund itself, sustainably without relying on development partners. Other areas also include reviewing the operations of the African Union and making it more effective towards, the implementing the needs of the people here in the African continent. Like you rightly mentioned, in February 2024, the Kenyan President, William Ruto, was made the champion of these institutional reforms.
Right.
So this gathering is supposed to update African Union leaders, including President Mahama, who is expected to arrive here in Kenya, is to update them on what he has done so far, what he has done as the champion of the institutional reforms so far, and also let them know the works towards achieving the 5 areas that I mentioned earlier.
Right.
And it is expected to tap into the experience and the insights of the African leaders who we gather here. We know that President Mahama, who's been a former president before, now a president, has a lot of insights that he is expected to share in Nairobi tomorrow and then Monday when this retreat starts.
Maxwell, do we know any other heads of states that will be arriving in Kenya for this all-important event?
Well, the organizers are expected to give us those details shortly, but we know that other heads of states, African heads of states, are also expected to arrive this evening. Quite a number of them will be arriving, and we're sure that we'll be getting updates on that later this evening.
Maxwell Agbagbade, our presidential affairs correspondent in Kenya, ahead of the arrival of President John Dramani Mahama for that retreat in Kenya. And we'll bring you details as and when he brings us those. Now, the Ghana Boundary Commission's expertise is gaining recognition across Africa as it continues to provide mentorship to many African countries seeking to strengthen their boundary commissions. In 2024, among many others, the Commission held an experience sharing workshop for Southern African Development Community countries. Recognizing Ghana's experience and success, several African countries grappling with the daunting task of establishing frameworks for the operations sought guidance from the Ghana Boundary Commission. And again, in 2024, the assessment interview with Joy News, Commissioner General Major General Emmanuel Kutia expressed his commitment to strengthening the Commission's influence further in 2025. Here's more.
The first instance of sharing our experience was with the Boundary Commission with Guinea and Sierra Leone. That was in Cote d'Ivoire, where we were invited to share our experience on how to establish boundary commission, because those countries were in the process of establishing those commissions. Now, the second instance was when the African Union Boundary Program, in collaboration with the GIZ, organized an experience workshop for SADC countries, Southern African Development countries in Ghana. And all the states came, and they even included Ethiopia from East Africa, and then Kenya. Now, what we did was to give them framework of how the Ghana's Boundary Commission was established, and then lay out some of the frameworks that they require to establish boundary commissions. Frameworks such as a law that must establish the boundary commission. You need to have a strategic plan. You need to have a scheme of service for staff. You need to have a legislative instrument establishing certain conditions and conditions of service for staff and what have you. So we're able to give that experience. Going forward also, the ECOWAS decided to contact us for us to organize to the first Heads of Boundary Commission meeting, workshop. So the act establishing the Ghana Boundary Commission was gazetted in 2010. It's an act of parliament that was passed in 2010 and gazetted in 2010. Now, the object of the Ghana Boundary Commission is to demarcate land boundaries and do a delimitation of maritime boundaries with a neighboring country. Now, in addition, the Ghana Boundary Commission undertakes other responsibilities like social intervention, organizing social intervention for deprived border communities, also doing reaffirmation with a neighboring country along the international land and maritime boundary lines, and also offering solutions, intervening if there are border conflicts along our international boundary with our neighbors. And for the last 4 years, we've been able to resolve quite a number of potential border issues along our international boundaries, especially with our eastern neighbors. There are some few issues that came up at our western boundary, and our northern boundary with Burkina Faso.
You're watching Joy Newsroom with me, Sweetie Aboshi. We'll take a quick break and we'll return with more stories. Thank you for staying across Ghana's 16 regions and on myjoyonline.com. This is Joy Newsroom. And let's continue with the bulletin because Education Minister Haruna Idrisu has announced an initiative to power all basic and secondary schools across the country with solar energy by the end of the year. According to the minister, the aim is to end basic and secondary schools' dependence on the national grid. Speaking at a press briefing to commemorate the International Day of Education, themed AI and Education, Human Agency in an Automated World, the minister stated some of the policies the John Mahama government intends to implement.
We will have to expand access to broadband infrastructure generally. In Ghana, we are all used to a major service provider who provides you access to internet. You don't even have redundancy for our purposes. We need to extend fiber and broadband to all educational institutions, in particular public tertiary institutions. You cannot prepare for an AI digital literacy future without internet connectivity. That would mean that we need to collaborate with the Ministry of Communication and other private sector in order to be able to provide that. One of the major things we intend to do is to roll out solar on all basic schools and free senior high schools in order to take them off the national grid. We intend that this year we'll announce a launch of that initiative.
Further, he called for collaboration among private sector and international organizations to address and dismantle systemic barriers that perpetuate the marginalization of groups such as girls, children, and persons with disabilities from access to education.
The Convention on the Rights of the Child, adopted in 1989, goes further to stipulate that countries shall make higher education accessible to all. In Ghana, we emphasize access, relevance, and quality when it comes to higher education. When it was adopted by the UN in 2030 to work towards Agenda 2030 in September 2015, the international community recognized that education is essential for the success of all 17 of the SDG 4 goals. So you see, you need education in order that you can achieve all the goals that are set in the resolution that which was adopted in September 2015. In particular, to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all by 2030. Ghana subscribes to this position. So as we promise, addressing these challenges requires strong partnership. The government, private sector, international organizations, and communities must unite to dismantle the systematic barriers that continue to marginalize groups, such as girls, children, and persons with disabilities from accessing quality education.
Still on education, continuing students at the Ikuapem Technical Institute have exhibited their skills and knowledge gained in building construction technology classes by fixing basic infrastructure problems in their community. As part of activities to mark International Day for Education, the students painted school blocks, carried out masonry work, and more in selected schools within the Ikuapem South District of the Eastern Region. Here's a report by Emefa Atiamwa Eli.
17-year-old Patience Korte is the only girl among more than a dozen male classmates constructing the veranda wall of the JHS block of the Ajimantin MA Basic School. It is Friday morning, January 24, 2025, the International Day for Education. This year's commemoration is under the theme AI and Education, Challenges and Opportunities. In a bid to demonstrate the quality and inclusiveness needed in Ghana's educational system, the Ghana Education Service, in partnership with its development partners, is testing the impact of the existing TVET program on education. Today, Patience and her classmate from Equiapem Technical Institute are leading this initiative here at Ajimanting MA Basic School in the Equiapem South District. They have been equipped with materials and tools to paint sunblocks and provide masonry services in selected schools. Patience is determined to challenge the gender stereotypes associated with her career choice.
When they are laughing me, I feel very excited because my job and I wanted to do it. So I didn't feel any sad or embarrassed.
Like many of her peers, Patience remains optimistic about a bright future after school.
I want to further my education. I want to do real estate and development.
18-year-old Nicholas Yao Danso, one of Patience's classmates, shares his perspective. He says 2 years of technical education have equipped him with entrepreneurial skills that will enable him to avoid relying on governments for employment.
It's a good idea because when you complete the TVET cycle, you are going to be self-employed. You are not going to be dependent on the government to employ you before you can work.
Development partners in the education sector, led by UNICEF, joined the students in this hands-on demonstration to mark the 2025 International Day for Education. UNICEF Ghana country representative Uzama Makawi said there is the need to modernize the TVET program to align with evolving industry standards.
TVET is the best way to reach the most vulnerable adolescents and young people in order to impart our skill sets. We have different programs around the skills, but my question is, are they scalable? Are they reaching everybody? And whom do they actually serve? Are they serving the most vulnerable? I think that's the question. The answer I found in Ghana with almost 300 schools of TVET. That's an amazing network to really reach the poor in Ghana. There are a lot need to be done. And let me summarize it in one word. For the 21st century, we need to modernize our TVET to fit the purpose and to fit the needs of the market and the need of the day.
Meanwhile, the head of the Building Construction Technology Department at the Equiapem Technical Institute noted that students are being trained to meet the industry standard skill requirements.
Through the training we give our students, they are getting to know the right ways to do things. Others, like I already said, they came with the skills already, but then it was adopted from the local masons and the rest. But then, and there are some of the things they do that were not right. So as they came into the formal education, we would have to perfect everything they know and then streamline it according to the regulations of the building industry.
The demonstration school for the deaf and the Anglican primary school also benefited from the services of the TVET students on the International Day for Education. My name is Amafa Ewenamatiamwa Eli for Joy News, Ajimantin, Eastern Region.
And our last story for this bulletin, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, celebrates International Day of Education, championing AI in education. Now, the theme for this year's celebration is AI and education, preserving human agency in a world of automation. An AI enthusiast urges that AI has come to stay and is disruptive, argues rather that AI is disruptive, which should be adopted by all to enable easier task performance across all domains. Learners equally believe that AI has purposefully been designed for them to for them as an assistant and not by way of taking away their critical thinking skills. Mamavi Sefako Tei has more in this report.
The integration of artificial intelligence in education has the potential to revolutionize the way teaching and learning is conducted. It has been realized that AI-powered adaptive learning systems can personalize education for individual students, while intelligent tutoring systems can provide one-on-one support. Again, automation of administrative tasks can free up teachers to focus on teaching and learning. This is not to undermine the threats that AI use in education can pose. As machines take over routine and repetitive tasks, what role will teachers play in the classroom? An AI enthusiast, a lecturer, and educational researcher, Daniel Fenyi, shared his thoughts on the impact of AI on education.
We are adopting it, even though it is changing the trends of our lectures, the trends of our teaching, the dynamics of our learning and all that. It has some positive elements that we always encourage our students to adopt, and obviously industry is also using AI, and so if you are a student, you are in school and you are learning, it is incumbent on you to adopt AI. Not to overly use it, because to some extent it can kill creativity, it can kill critical thinking, but you are encouraged as a student to make use of AI. So we have already observed that pattern, that students are tempted to overly use AI. So yes, some level of laziness is creeping in. However, we can't also downplay the presence of AI, the establishment of AI, and the fact that it is here to stay with us. It also implies that as lecturers or as educators, we give projects and assignments that will compel students to actually get involved in the responses that they give. If you give them projects that could be done with AI, you can trust that they will use AI to do it. But if you give them practice-based assignments and projects, then they wouldn't have any option than to sit, research, and then come up with responses.
Let's hear from students who are the beneficiaries of this novel technology.
As students, we normally use the AI apps for our studies. Maybe if you have your research works, you can use it for your studies. When you want to study personally at your own pace, you can also use the AI for your studies. You can also use it with your friends for your group studies.
AI has been very helpful for most of we the students. Mostly we use it for our group work, and we also use it for our research. So it has been very helpful to most of us as well.
Basically, AI helps with studies. Like whenever you are studying something that is really complicated and complex that you can't really seem to understand, you can use AI to break it down and then understand everything in much simpler terms.
I don't think AI is making students lazy. I think it's rather making it easier for students to learn and, get more things done. Yeah.
No, yes. Sometimes it makes us lazy, but sometimes it helps in studying and makes research easier. Yeah.
You see, AI helps a lot in most of the assignments and stuff, but it also helps when, you don't actually all the time open the book, but when you are given an assignment or something, and when there's AI, before you do it, you read it. So definitely you're going to get some understanding on it.
Can be both a help to and a disruption. But perhaps how it is incorporated makes the difference. Mamavi Sefakote's report, read to you.
And it's a wrap for Joy Newsroom today. My name is Sweetie Aboshi, but for more news, do log on to myjoyonline.com to stay informed and updated. Please stay and enjoy the rest of our program.